All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is BBA 2025 podcast episode 4. And boy, do we have an exciting episode today. I've got a good friend of mine. We've battled together, we've battled against each other. We've won a championship together. Taher Hasanali from Houston, Texas, although he's lived in multiple cities since BBA started. I'm going to allow him to give a brief introduction about himself. I'll highlight some of his credentials and why requested him to come on. We had one more person that was supposed to join us today, but as many of you know, Yusuf Ali's probably been asleep since sunset, so we'll just have to fill in without him. And then we'll get the conversation going from there. Taher, please.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Mustan. And I'm a little offended. I wore this shirt for you, our 2015 team. I see you're not reciprocating wearing I think
I
that's
wore it episode 1 or episode 2. It would have been a little weird to,
okay, fair. Yeah, you don't want to repeat outfits. Got to worry about that. No, but good to be on, good to talk. I definitely have a lot of thoughts and opinions, so excited to share them. Taher Hasanali with one S. Now I have to differentiate myself from Austin Taher Hasanali. But yeah, no, I've been in BBA now. I started 2015, so I think I played in 9 BBA so far. Actually got in because of Yusuf, who, the aforementioned Yusuf. But yeah, he invited me to join actually during one of the City for City tournaments, and then ended up joining.
I
And
think that was actually the very first city tournament.
that was the very first City tournament. We can talk about
Very
that in
high
a bit.
highs and very low lows that year.
It still hurts in my chest. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a bit. But I think there's some fun memories from that tournament for sure.
It's funny you mentioned the 1S. So I told Hamza, my son, I was like, hey, I have Dar Hassan. And he goes, the guard? I was like, he's not a guard. He's technically a big man. He goes, no, the other one's the big man. I was like, all right, I'll just let it rest. I was like, he's the big man. He was our big man, all right. So it was funny, like having him just kind of differentiating the two Taher Hassanlis, both studs on the court, critical parts of BBA. So Taher, let me just do the humble bragging for you. 9 BBAs, which is about 30% less than some players, but 300% more accolades than most. So talk a little bit about some of the hardware you have. I see that in the background. You got 3 championships. I think that puts you in the maybe the top echelon or tied for number one. Maybe Murtaza Ali might be competing with you.
Mhm.
But talk a little bit about like what you've gone through and then even dive deeper into the highs, lows, and I got some questions for you.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I think three. Yeah, there's a few of us with three. Myself, Murtaza Ali. I actually think Saifuddin Bora might have three as well. He's been a key player on a lot of teams, but have been fortunate to be with some awesome teams. Yeah, no, I started hot. My first tournament with you, Aamir Poonawala, we ended up winning the championship in 2015. This team. Then the year after, my first year as captain, that was the first year at Taha Qatari. That was me, Raja, Hassan Zafar, Qatari were able to run it back and win. And then in 2019, was able to win with like the Cali team, the famous Cali team with the Jupiters, Tahir Baiji,
Kusei was with you, right?
and who?
Kusei Kalo?
Jose Calo was the only, yeah,
Who
Houston.
else was there? Let me think. Hamza
Murtaza
around.
Patanwala. He's the one who killed y'all that
That's
tournament.
right. Oh
That
man, I think
that
it five
three
threes one game, and then Baiji killed us the other, and they were like pick number 7 and 8, which is just
exactly.
sick.
So yeah, I've been fortunate to be on some really great teams. We'll definitely talk about how I think I stay stack up with some of the other teams, but had some really great, yeah, fortunate tournaments. Last tournament I played in 2023, we lost in the final. So fortunate been to 4 finals to
Wow,
Riz's team and Yusuf's team. So I got to make the finals this year, so I stay 50%. Making the finals 50% of my tournament. So
that's insane, man.
um,
That's some crazy accolades. Like as much as you want to say you're lucky to be on good teams, that you're a key part of those teams, right? You weren't just drafted at the right place at the right time. I mean, you were an integral part of that. So I want to dive a little bit on the psychology or leadership style and all that, but let's talk about the fun stuff that people are wondering, right? So I think your last chip was on an undefeated team.
mhm.
And then the only other undefeated team was the last champions, the Qasim Ali, Adnan Fatak and
Mhm.
company, and QV, can't forget him. Head to head, who wins?
I mean, I think it's that 2019 team. If I look at it, and I was doing a little research beforehand to mess around, like point differential wise, that's the second best team. The 2019 is the second best team ever. I think the total
Wow.
point differential was 135. Last year, Qasim's team and Raja's team were the same, 87 after the finals. So I think
Wow.
in terms of dominance,
Yeah.
2019 team just had all the pieces together. I mean, hard to say, but that team was just the chemistry was there, the depth was
You know what?
there.
I can talk a little bit about that because
Yeah, yeah.
we were the unlucky victims of two losses against you guys, and I had a stacked squad. I mean, I had myself, Abbas.
I thought y'all were gonna be
That second game still
in that
stings a
year.
little. I mean,
Yeah.
we've probably between us probably played 50 plus games.
Hmm.
Um, you can remember some of your best ones and the ones some of your biggest stingers are also right come to mind. And that was one because I think we had you at the road for like we finally got their number and then there it is. But I can say, it's bittersweet. Losing to y'all sucked, but then when we lose to the champion, it's like, all right, it's kind of a. So I like that you backed up your claim with data. As far as in your opinion, aside from wins and losses, like, do you think? I mean, the experiences seem like different, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
were, I guess, third player on our team because you were new to the game, new to BBA. Then you jumped to captain, right? Immediately, or no, Hosey picked you up.
No, no, a captain. Yeah, Jose
The
didn't pick
captain, and
captain
you
that
picked
year,
up
so I was the
Hosey.
captain that year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So talk about like kind of the experiences, right? Being on different teams and then, leadership, how you draft. I'd love to like just know a little bit about that. And also, if you're willing to, what was your favorite team?
Oh, favorite team? I don't know. I can't pick a favorite team. They're all different, as people say, right? You go through different journeys every tournament. Even the tournaments you lose,
Yeah.
you build kind of that bond with the team. So I won't say I have a favorite team. The journeys are different. Um, no, I think the first year, just having you and Aamir as like the leaders, and then we had some amazing role players, Abbas Kalol, Mustafa Burhani, Ismail Matai. Um, that was just like a great team because I mean, for me coming in, right? Like you're coming in, I didn't know anyone really the first tournament,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
just like go out there and do your thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I could just be my defensive, rebounding, athletic self at that time. Don't have the same athleticism I had 10 years ago, but um, so that was a good introduction. And then being a captain, totally different, right? Because
Mhm.
like you're setting the tone, you're drafting the team follows you. I think probably the biggest moment that was my growth as a captain was that 2016 team. Um, our we went on. We didn't go undefeated, but we were the number one seed after
I
day
think
one.
y'all had one loss.
What we had one loss, yeah, that year. But we were still the number one seed, and we
I
went
remember that
in
game.
on day two as the number one seed, and we lost our first game to Aamir Poonawala. And in that game, Hosey fouled out in the first half and got a tech in the first half because he was so pissed. One of the most amazing human beings, total hothead on the court, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
um, and we went over, and Kotari wasn't playing well that game. We ended up just getting beat. And after being the number one seed, losing the first game, if you're in the losers bracket the first game, you have to play so many games to
Oh
be
yeah.
able to make it
It's
back.
brutal.
And we kind of just sat in a huddle and we were just like, listen, we can't do that again.
Mhm.
Everyone needs to calm down. Let's go back to our defense. Let's start there. The next game we played Hustlers team. I think we held them to like 16 points. And
Wow.
then from there, it was just like game after game after game. And I think afterwards, Josefa, Raja, and Kotari were all like, yeah, we needed that moment, right? Like it was so easy for us to lose our heads that first game losing, and we
Yeah, adversity is critical in growth and also like
yeah.
kind of, forging that that championship pedigree. I
And
think
you
it's
see it
something
a
that's
lot.
very
Like you
good.
see a lot of teams that go undefeated or win a lot day one. A lot of them
Happened to us in
struggle.
the city tournament, to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, that's just recent memory. We handily, I think Houston gave us a little bit of a run the first day, but we overall handily beat everybody. And then we just got sucker punched the next day,
Mhm.
literally in some forms, but we got sucker punched, and it's not unusual. It's quite common. I think funny story, if I remember, going off on a tangent, Meme Gene,
Mhm.
who runs MFL, I
Mhm.
think he went winless the first day one year and turned around and won the championship. So from bottom to the top. So it's like crazy how much the first day is really a building block. And people,
For
I think,
sure.
take that for granted. They want to just focus on smashing everybody. They get some level of hubris or exhaustion, and then next thing you know, bad matchup, bad draw, done. So
Yeah.
no,
And
it's
my
critical you
biggest
mentioned
thing I
that.
think is, and you'll know the guys that have played with you know, it's just about like smart and defense. And then
Yeah,
the rest will come. And especially because day two, your legs get tired. Everyone's legs get tired.
yeah,
A lot of people play and they burn themselves out. You got to be also in the better like physical shape by the end of the
I
end of
agree.
the tournament because it's just
And
about
it's like what you're saying is important for the youngins to hear because there's so much stat chasing. I hear about it, so I know about it. Um, I think physical fitness is first, then
absolutely.
worrying about, everything else, right? Like if you're fit, then you can be on the court. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're a performer, the stats will follow. If you chase the stats, the likelihood of injury goes up, likelihood of pissing off your teammates goes up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had some very strong teams on paper that have actually gone winless,
Mm-hmm.
right? I won't mention names because I know that stings, but we've had very strong teams that have actually gone winless. Go back. It's on the BBA side for those
Yep.
folks that don't believe me. So yeah, there's like so much more, and that's what I value about BBA. I've even used some experiences from basketball in like life.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't go deep into that, but there's so much you can learn at a holistic level, and why I think here we are as geezers still into it. So
Yeah,
tell me
of
a
course.
little bit about when you draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because jumping in and being a champion is obviously amazing. Best case scenario. Dyer Baiji's been fortunate enough into doing
Mm-hmm.
that and jumping into being a captain, and he's also had some repeated success, right? He's another guy that I think is worthy of these conversations. You had to gamble a bit, right? Kotari was a risk. Even Hosey, like you only had, I don't even know if we played Hosey that first year, right? Like, so what is your research process like?
Yeah.
What is it that you seek? And, I respect the fact that you may not want to reveal all your cards, but like, let's capitalize on the fact that you and I aren't just captains this year, right? So
Yeah,
what
I mean,
is
I'm
that
happy. I
info?
won't, share everything, but I think a lot of it is commonsensical. And I've like last year, I was definitely talking to a bunch of captains during the draft and giving them advice and stuff
Sure,
like that.
sure.
So I mean, I know I'm not necessarily not the best player, overall player, but I
Mhm.
definitely take pride in being like a good GM, like a good
Sure.
team builder and player, right?
Right.
Um, and I think, yeah, a couple of things that I'm looking at for sure are balance in a team. So I think you have to have experience and IQ and youth and energy, right?
Right.
So like a full team that's young and energy, a lot of times they end up burning themselves out and
Right.
maybe struggle in the at the end of games. Full team of oldies and geezers by day two, they're
Yeah.
struggling, in the second, third game. So having that balance and all of the teams that I've played on that have been the most successful have had that balance and then the depth. Like you have to have at least seven guys who are capable of being on the court and like having a role. I think you see it over and over again, right? When teams are too top heavy, they burn out. It's a lot of pressure on that team, and when they're able to focus on six and seven, like I'm thinking about even your Houston team,
Sure.
right? Was eight deep. I mean,
Yeah.
Shamsuddin went down and got hurt, your second pick,
Yeah.
and that was Zakir's first big year, right? And then you had
He was
you know
14 at the time. I think people don't
14
realize
and he was
that.
just raining threes down, right? We knew from then. But having that depth, you have to make it to the finals, right?
Mhm.
So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at that balance of young old, but I always try to prioritize like people who are want to learn more about the game, like care about the IQ piece as well, and want to kind of fit into that team model. And then I kind of adjust myself around that, right?
It's like it's funny because like he doesn't necessarily have the same hardware or maybe overall success, but I think someone that comes to mind is Kansa, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Defensive minded, will accept that he's not the alpha on the court in facets, but like as far as leadership, building the team, like
Yeah.
the key winning ingredient, right? And the reason I'm calling him out was he was critical to our success in 2021 as well. And I mean, in just the same way, honestly, that you were critical, right? Willing to guard 1 through 5, willing to step back when necessary, willing to speak when necessary. And I mean, one of my highlights of that year was when I hit that buzzer beater, not because of the buzzer beater, not because it was on the home court. All that was like honestly icing on the cake. But in that timeout, Concept just goes, this is, he basically just, like I've been on teams where people are like, look for me,
Hmm.
right? And like, as much as Kobe was hated, the one thing that he said was, I want the last shot because I put in the work, right? And I don't really go around announcing that because we're a bunch of friends, right?
Hmm.
Concept was like, go. We're getting out of your way and do what you have to do. And I've never really felt that kind of confidence from like a co-captain, right? In a moment like that, because either we were up too much or, I'm also willing to like kind of make the right pass and stuff. But it was like the first time I was like, do it. And it's crazy because that takes character to do, right? And for you, obviously, you've had the success. So it's just like interesting that there's all these elements. Because I'm part of this podcast for me is not just about like us old heads talking. I really hope that some of these guys get some key lessons on like it's sometimes you just can't be the most liked guy on the court,
Hmm.
and sometimes you just got to shut it off and not go out there to win and just be like, hey, let's hug it out. We're good, right? Stakes are high, and intensity's there. You have family watching. These things are being streamed now, right?
Hmm.
And some of us old guys are still trying to prove something. The young guys are trying to prove something. So there's a lot of dynamics at play that I think that taken for granted.
Yeah.
Cool. This was fun little walk down memory lane. We're about 23 minutes in, so that's a timestamp for us to edit later if needed.
Yeah. Good to
We have
know.
a couple of topics I wanted to dive into. Obviously, the hottest topic right now is the draft. I think there's a good segue since we touched on like drafting styles and so
Hmm.
forth. And then, if time permits, I know we've prepared a bit of interesting banter around best ever head to head. People have actually in the survey responded about that. They really want to hear, who I guess maybe you and I think, or who anyone thinks would be like the best team all time and all that. So that's really fun stuff we can do later. So the draft.
Hmm.
This was the first time I was a part of an auction draft. I had kind of got a glimpse into what the volleyball team did the week before the volleyball tournament. I know cricket's been doing it for a while. Have you ever been involved in one, like whether it's fantasy football or was this fairly new to you as well?
I've definitely done fantasy football auction drafts, so familiar with the format, familiar with some of the pros and cons of having an auction draft, right? I think the biggest thing being how do you kind of build in systems that make sure it doesn't get too lopsided, right? If
Right.
someone can't outskill someone in terms of
Sure.
like just a better auctioneer or kind of manipulate the situation for their advantage and create like a lopsided team. Sometimes that happens, and I think the committee tried to with the tiers tried to build in something that prevented that from happening.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've been a part of it before. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely more fun and engaging, right? Like there's more fun to the draft because there's a little game part of it, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. What's funny is I think this was a hybrid, right? Like if you
mhm,
look at drafts, there's either snake to try to equalize things, there's random order, there's like weighted talent like Hustler. Obviously, I think it's no secret that there was a little bit of a weight against him because of just his
mhm,
sheer dominance, right? I think I still put him almost every year. Maybe his stats are declining a bit, but that's I think intentional. I still consider him the most dominant guy, right?
yeah,
He's Shaq because he can do it all, right? He can shoot the three now, and he did that last year in my face. He knows why I'm mentioning it because we had a funny little moment.
mhm,
Um, he can grab the boards over anyone. He's built like a tank, right? So I know there was waiting done. What else? We have tier systems. We've done that one city tournament.
yeah,
This was just a hybrid. That's what made it interesting, right? And I think the goal of the committee was the right goal, right? Try to bring parity.
yeah, of
But captains are going to be captains in BBA, man. We've seen sneaky
course.
stuff in the past. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. There's definitely some sneaky stuff. So I will, before we talk about what we think about the teams and stuff, I wanted to share a little bit. I put out a survey.
Mhm.
I wish I was getting some more responses. So if these seem a little off, just know that these are biased based on the people that responded. I asked folks, number one, what they thought of the draft. And again, it's a small sample size, but overwhelmingly folks liked that it was interesting. I love that it was interesting. It actually got my wheels and gears spinning a little bit. Was there flaws? I think yes, because we're people categorized right. Should we have
Yeah.
had tiers, all that? Okay, that's whatever. We won't go into that. But what's interesting is number two is people want to keep it simple. I think not everyone has the bandwidth for it, and I think that's a fair thing to consider. But maybe that should be part of the captain selection.
Mhm.
Um, but otherwise, there was a little bit of indifference here and there. So just some feedback for the committee. I'm going to ask you the question now.
Mhm.
What do you think was the biggest surprise of this year's draft? And then I'll tell you what people thought.
Biggest surprise. Um, I think who was it? There was a few players that whose values got driven up. Like Hustler, you expect to be up there.
Yeah.
I forget who the other one was. Was it Dalal or Brandon Chakra? One of those Toronto guys.
Moran Shocker was another diamond.
Yeah,
He
which made sense to me.
he
But then
went up. Him and Hustler were 55, and then I want to say Yusuf and Haji were
I would
45.
say I think Haji, and I mean I love Yusuf. We have a great rivalry going, but Yusuf at 45 at right now was crazy because I mean we were talking about like, oh, I wonder like maybe we can sneak in and steal Yusuf late, right, and
Yeah.
height, and it just when you want to play with the guy, I guess you go all out. But yeah, Yusuf and Haji to
Yusuf is an
me,
enigma though,
easy.
right? Like because we could man, I've played Yusuf a lot at like Lifetime. I've played with him a lot in these Friday night balls. And I don't know if he's just playing at 50%, but then you see him at BBA and like he'll complain about his knees and he'll talk about, oh,
And then he just clutches it. Yeah,
he'll just say some bull
yeah.
and then he'll put up like double double. So there must be some appeal to him. Maybe I'm biased because we've played together for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
No shade. I've been wanting to play with him. It's just been crazy coincidence that we've never played together other than that one tournament. You played with him once, right?
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah.
So
That was 2017. Yeah.
okay. I think yeah, you guys were actually burnt orange.
Yeah, we were. That's right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. So you're surprised with seeing some of these guys go high.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, so I would say that was my surprise in terms of the draft and how it
Yeah.
played out, pushing that high to get those couple of players. I think some captains had their eyes on a few players and they were
Mhm.
just like, whatever it takes, right?
Right.
And then certainly I think the big like elephant in the room is like these players that didn't get picked, right? So like seeing an Aamir Poonawala, seeing a Farouk, seeing a Zain Arastu, like not on a team is like crazy, right? I mean, I understand why the draft, the way that it was structured, like it was the way the draft structure didn't allow like people to kind of get those gold players, right? So I mean, I think that was right a shocker that those guys are not.
90% of people
Yeah,
said they were shocked by that.
yeah. I mean, that's
Of those 90% of those people named Amir.
yeah, yeah.
They were like, how the hell did he go undrafted? And I don't think it's anything personal to Amir. I think he was a
No, no.
victim of the system. An interesting response, which I didn't really think about, was the biggest surprise for them. And it's a very relevant answer. So I'm bringing it out, even though it was only one person, was all the young captains, some of the super new, super young captains. So captain
Mm,
selection, let's just call it. I think that's actually an interesting point.
mm.
We might have touched on it before, but it is a little bit of unfair. There's a little bit of unfairness for, I think Josefa is his name, Josefa Conchola.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
He could be an absolute beast, and I would hope the best for him, but that's a surprise. First year in BBA to be a captain,
Yeah. No, I
that's an
think,
uphill climb.
and I think being a captain is difficult, very difficult, as we know, in terms of how to control it. Obviously, having a co-captain who has been there and done that is key. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a surprise to me too, because
I
I'm
mean, look, in
just used to
years
being
past,
captain.
he would have benefited from the snake. He would have probably been a top pick,
Right.
right? So he would have had a chance to get a strong, but this was an even playing field in theory, especially
Right.
with the randomized. And I think they put him as a gold or platinum. So
Platinum, yeah. Mhm.
I wish him well. All right. Who was the biggest steal of this year's draft?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, like the easy answer is Kusai, right? Like
My answer,
that's
bar
like
none. $12 for Kusei. He was
easy,
on our
right?
target list, and it's just the way the timing played out, where we were. I was literally like gutted when he was getting picked. But yeah, anyone else stick out to you?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head. I did think though some of the pre-auction picks that
Hmm.
didn't end up making it to the auction,
Right.
like were steals, right? So like getting like a potentially like we got a Shepard Kitab just at the base value
Yeah.
for his tier, getting some of those guys that are going to be the future, right?
Right.
Basically, at their base tier was a steal, right? And then we're bidding up, some of these other guys so high because they're in the auction.
Yeah.
So I think that piece was surprising to me that more of those guys were not in the actual auction part, right?
So I don't know if you've already seen the results. You're a mind reader. So I'll tell you what. So Kusei was, I think one person mentioned Kusei, which was my answer.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, just to summarize it, was kind of twofold answer to yours. So the
Mm-hmm.
first was diamonds at base price, which is essentially folks that were pre-drafted, right? And then some specific names, which are essentially the same thing. Ali Zohair, not bid up.
Right.
Young Taher Hasanali,
Yeah, the big
or as
one.
Hamza would call him, the center,
Yeah.
not bid up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Shabir Kitabwala,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was super interesting, right? It's instead of being surprised at how some people were like overvalued, the fact that a lot of these guys went at face value was, let's look at the flip side, the positive of it. Number one, a lot of captains got who they wanted,
Right.
right? Which is every captain's dream, right? If you envision yourself with like a top tier player and you get them, you have no complaints.
Yeah.
Number two, I think it's an attribute and a testament. Number two, I think it's like, how do I say this? Like a testament, that's the word I'm looking for, to the
Mm-hmm.
fact that this was a deep draft,
It
right?
was. Yeah.
The talent pool was deep. I mean, the last time, honestly, I feel like was our year, 10 years ago when we had a
Mm-hmm.
smaller number of teams. I mean, we played some stacked teams,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think what made us win that year was our chemistry. We had no gaps, right? But to find subsequent years after that, there was always some kind of gap, like a guy you could leave open or someone you attacked, right? Because of their defense. This is one of those years where, like, even if I look at my team, I obviously have my biases, but like at least in the starting lineup or the bulk of the minutes, there's really no gaps. So I think that's a testament to this year's talent pool. Obviously, the up and coming guys. Okay,
Yeah.
now the fun stuff
All right.
relevant to this draft.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at the team, so I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share real
Yeah, that'd be
quick.
great. Yeah.
And then before we comment on the teams themselves, let's talk about who you think was the best. So I'm going to share here. Let me know if you could see my screen.
I'm gonna. Yeah. Okay, I can see it now.
So we should have one view of, let me shrink it just a little bit. Okay, 14 team view. Is that fairly clear for you, Tyler?
It's a little small, but
Okay, let's do this.
we can go through them a little bit.
So
Yeah.
I'll break it up into the first,
Perfect.
say 8. Is that better?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So I'll give a quick overview of like, say, let the top like 2 players on each team in no bias order. So Qasim and Ali
Mm-hmm.
Dawala from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Got Melam and who's his number 1 guy? Probably Hamza Burhan.
Yeah.
We've got Migdad Yu and
Shabir probably.
Baby Shabir, right? Baby Kitab.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got Riz and Hosey. There you go. It's number 8 here.
It's
Riz and Hosey. We've got Baby Koch and Cutlery. We've got Yamani, Sizzle back together again. I don't think they've ever lost.
yeah.
And then the Canadians. We've got my team or Abu's team plus me and Murtaza and Todd. We've got Mustansir Karimi and Hasnain. That's an interesting team because they got Taher Hasanali young.
Mm-hmm. And I think Baruch, a lot of people were really high on
Yeah.
Baruch.
Well, he was on our target, and
Yeah.
I'll uncover a bit. So Baruch was our primary target, and
Mhm.
Haji was our secondary. And I probably should have just not put it into the universe, but I said the only scenario in which we're screwed is if Haji goes for auction first. And lo and behold, he did, and we ended up with neither.
Yeah, Baruch
Very
was on
happy
our
with
list
it.
as well, and we didn't have the money to keep up. So
That's it.
Mhm.
The 2 foot ducks,
Mhm.
that'll be fun to see.
That'll be fun.
Hamid going with his go-to guys, and then who's his? Oh, you got Hustler, Hamid and Hustler. Wow, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then we've got, let's see, Jose Fakanch that we mentioned earlier. He picked up Ukani. That'll be fun. We've got Bottom with his Cali squad.
Mm-hmm.
Zakir Kansab back together again. I think they've played like every year, it feels like. And then he got Ali Zohair. That was one of the steals of the draft.
Mhm.
And then Tuza and Abbas, the Austin connection. So who do you think, in your estimation? Obviously, it's a tough because this is a deep year. I don't know how much time you've got to put into it so far, but who do you think kind of stands out? Because I'll
Yeah, I
tell
mean,
you, the survey results were very interesting.
okay, yeah, yeah. What my initial gut reaction, and I haven't looked at the depth of the teams yet. Cutlery and Baby Conch scares me.
Hmm.
That pairing together, Cutlery is like does all the dirty work and can score at the basket, length, nonstop motor, and then you throw Baby Conch offensively on that. Like that's a dangerous duo.
Don't
Um,
sleep on Mukaram Januala. He was on our target list, 6'3", 18-year-old.
yeah, so they have some more height there. So I mean, we'll see how the rest of those guys felt the team, but that
Ahmad G
top two scares me.
sharpshooter.
Yeah. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
your six is really interesting. Your team
Hmm.
six, like that could really be crazy. In terms of like adding in the Taher Baiji, adding in like I play a lot with Hussein Kambati, who's in LA. So I know his game a lot. He could add a lot to that team. So that's an exciting
I call him
team.
Kansab Light.
Yeah, yeah, he is. He has that like that dog energy, right? Like
Yeah.
he goes for it. And then I really love our team. I mean, I'm biased, but I think there's a lot of really great balance. It goes eight deep in terms of they're all starters. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they've all started in different teams,
They have.
that eight. So I feel like we're very deep and well rounded. And we're already, giving people motivation. We're already going. We're talking about our workouts, talking about
I
how we're
love it.
getting in shape every day. So um yeah,
So
those
your top three, to recap, you've got Cutlery, you've got
Cutlery.
your team, and I don't know if you're just saying it because I'm on the call. You got us.
No, I think your team, I am interested in the Hamid Hustler team as well.
Okay.
They got a lot of interesting pieces, and we'll see how they play together.
I think one of the most fun guys, whether he's on my team or not, is Abbas Kalo.
I mean, yeah,
He is just such a riot.
I've only played with them that one year, 2015,
He's
and I
such a
missed it.
riot, man.
Yeah.
I literally stop and I watch their whenever he's on the court. I just because the energy, his decision making,
Mm-hmm.
it's just so much fun, dude. He's one of the most fun players to watch. He's like yapping away and just hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. To me, those are the ones that really stand out. I don't know enough about the Toronto guys to know how deep those teams
Dude,
are.
names like this scare me.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even on my radar. Got picked early in the draft. The Wolfen
Exactly.
knows something, or he doesn't. We'll find out. But man, that scares me when I see a net new name. I've heard things about Mustafa Abdul. He was on my radar.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Hmm.
get him. So
So
it's
so
gonna be
those I just don't know enough about. But yeah, I think those are the ones. I mean, but then you still have, right? Dasim and Adnan are both coming off championships, right? And
yeah.
they have, some of their top players that they're going to do well with, right? Um,
It
so I mean,
feels like
those
the
teams will all
NBA
be tough.
playoffs, man. It's a freaking toss up this year.
Yeah, I honestly can't say if a team is like I don't think there's going to be any dominant teams, like in the sense of like you get this like I mean maybe there will be, who knows what some of the
Sure.
depth is, but just from the draft itself it looks pretty interesting.
Yeah. I know it's like there's not really a theme, like we've had like
Mhm.
big and small, right, in the past. Offense, defense, or offense, defense,
Yeah,
right? This is like a crazy spread.
I think for the first time maybe since like 2015 we actually also have enough big men.
True.
Like
True.
2015 it was small enough, you had the Rusty Wallas, you had a few other guys who were there big men, but like there isn't 14 good big men in past years that like you could feel comfortable with. Now with some of these Toronto
True.
guys, some of the younger Houston, Chicago guys, I feel like you can actually have everyone has balance on their team in terms
Yeah.
of big small.
Toronto has such a depth of bigs, it's insane, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited to
I
see.
don't know what's in their water. It's crazy.
It's a good question.
Um, okay, so I'll give you my input in 1 second. But
Yeah, yeah,
before I do, I'm going to touch on the results, which
yeah,
were
yeah.
very interesting because neither of the teams that were number one and number two are pretty much, you can't say unanimous, but they were the only two answers. Again, it's a smaller pool
Mhm.
of people, but I was shocked. Not on the answer, but the shocked how many people put consistently the same answers and neither being on your radar. So the most popular, I think it actually might be a tie because people's misspellings and stuff, was Melum, Melum's
Mhm.
team. And then the other one was Burhani's team. So let's pull that up. So I'm going to zoom in on Melam's team.
Team four is like most of Abrahami's
Yeah,
team.
so Melam's team
Oh,
is Melam, Hamza, Burhan. There's chemistry
well,
there.
they
Adam
played together. Yeah,
Sulemanji,
they played together in one or maybe two BBAs now.
two, I think
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Adam Sulemanji, Ammar Danish. I think the two Danish brothers are, I think, athletic
Yeah,
freaks. I
I
don't
know
know
Muhammad
what
Danish. I played with him in Cali. I don't know.
super athletes, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, Kusei's battle tested. Murtaza Shabir, who was on our radar a bit, um, I think he's a youngin actually, up and coming, and then Shabir Karimi. I did not have them in my top
Mm.
like three or four, but it was crazy because everybody does. No offense, Melo. Second one that I agree with, but I'm going to put an asterisk that I'll explain in a sec. I want your thoughts first. Is Burhani's team. I do think he drafted amazing. I think he learned from getting his ass beat in the volleyball draft on how to play the game a
I
bit.
keep forgetting Raja sneaks in at the end there. You know,
Yes. So I have my feedback, but I'm curious as what you think on them and why they didn't necessarily fall on your radar, or did you just overlook them?
I think I overlooked it. I think I was looking at, I mean, Riz and Maher, I think have played together. They have a lot of great chemistry, but Maher and Raja like almost always play together, and they
Always,
have
yeah.
even like better chemistry. Um, I guess I wasn't. Yeah, this team didn't have, and maybe I'm not looking strong enough. Didn't have the youth that I was thinking. You got Riz, Maher, Shabir, Raja. Kadi's getting a little older. QV
Yep.
still's got the jump, but he's getting a little
He's
bit older.
he's
Maher
older too,
Sabat,
yeah.
yeah, he's got a lot of speed. But yeah, I think that's what struck me. I didn't see any of that. I talk about right balance, right? So I didn't see that youth balance. That's the only reason I didn't put it. But on paper, this team could be
I
amazing.
think what Burhani nailed was there's really no gaps. I think they
Yeah,
might struggle a little bit on rebounding just considering the size this year of teams.
yeah.
Everybody here is trustworthy. I don't think there's any gaps, offensive, defensive.
Yeah, chemistry wise, they're going to be on point,
Oh,
right? And
but my
Kadi,
asterisks, and it kind of piggybacking on what you said, I feel like they're going to be a great Saturday team.
that's what I mean. And
Sunday,
maybe they'll play it to their advantage and they'll
yeah, either
take
they
it
just
easy
don't care
Saturday.
about Saturday and go balls to
Yeah,
the walls on Sunday, and then they're an amazing team. But if they actually play for some dubs and are in some battles on Saturday, which I know Hosey's a competitor. Actually, everybody here wants to win. Shubber's a competitor. He's fierce, right? I don't know how much they'll have in the tank. I mean, for the most part, these guys are pretty fit. I mean, Maher's gone
yeah,
deep
yeah.
multiple playoffs. Shubber's gone deep multiple playoffs.
No, they have the
Gandhi
experience.
Rouhani Yas is better hit the gym. Hosey also, if he's going to be driving a lot of this, it'll be interesting to see how much he's got in the tank the next day. Uncle
Yeah,
Hosey.
I mean they have the experience. They know what they need to do. But yeah, I mean when I think of the championship teams, there's always at least two of those like young. You don't expect them, but they got the energy. Like on Riz's team in Cali, it was
Yeah,
Mustansir Abbas, right? It was
right.
like a revelation
Yeah.
that year for them, right? In terms of like what he brought and the energy, and he
I
really
mean,
put
similar to
everybody up.
Kotari for you guys, right? Like there's
Right,
that up and coming stud, and he just happens to be the third or fourth option. And he gets to shine without the
exactly.
pressure. Baby Kitab last year, right? Was an example. Here's so you gave me your thoughts on who are the best teams. I looked at this, I thought about this. It's hard because head to head puts bias, who
Yeah,
I've seen, who I've played against. Um, but the one that's just not popped on anyone's radar that completely caught me in Abbas's eye, obviously there's bias.
mm.
I think Zakir's team is going to be nasty, right? Ali Zohair going at face value is highway robbery. Um,
Yeah,
him and Zakir is going to be scary,
yeah.
right?
I think they have. I just have no idea. There's 6 through 8, and
Yeah.
like I just don't know who they are. And
And that's interesting because like I think the reason people didn't put his team is that's how much emphasis now there is on depth, right?
exactly.
There hasn't really been a championship team. Let's think. Has there been anyone that's had like a completely useless bench? Not really, right? I
No,
mean, you may have even
maybe
had finalists, but to win it all, I can't really think of anyone.
maybe the closest, and even then, their bench still contributed quite a bit. Was like that Ukani or like Aliyah Restu team, which like
Yeah, that was a
Aliyah
strong
Restu,
1-2 punch. Didn't they have
like
Mustafa
and
Moyes
Ukani
as
down low.
well?
What?
Did they have Mustafa Moyes that year? I can't remember. No,
No, I think that was a different year.
that was a different year. That was with Amar and that was Adnan and Sizzle.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. And back then also the dynamics might have been a little different,
Right.
but it's crazy to think.
That's what turned me off of that team. I looked at the top 3, 4, and I was like, this is going to be strong. But then I was again the depth
I think
of
you're just pissed Yusuf went for 45.
pissed is a strong word. Yusuf went for the same as me, I guess technically, which
He went for more than me, man.
yeah.
It's nuts. I picked me over Yusuf. Yeah, I said it. I think Zakir's a little sneaky, right? I think he knows what he's doing with these other guys. He must maybe
He
there's
did
some
his research.
teen
I know he knows
stuffery.
what he's doing.
It's
Yeah.
teen stuffery, maybe,
Yeah.
right? Kansa we already know is a little bit of a pedo, right? He always goes for the young teens.
Yeah.
But let's see, teenager.
Oh, yeah.
I
How
think
old is
we're all
Elise Zohair?
teenagers.
He's a teenager still?
I think Abdul Zahir is a teenager, Wag's a teenager, and I don't know who Hasnan is. So
Mhm.
these could be complete sleepers and they shock the world. But then we have, a couple of geezers. Shout out to Uncle Feroz.
Mhm.
So that'll be fun.
But I mean, he's the MVP, right? It'll be a good team, right? He's the reigning
He's gonna face the wrath of having like a big fat target on his back. So, but he
Yeah.
offsets that with Zohair. You just can't leave Zohair.
Right.
So
And
it'll be
that's
fun.
that's going to be the interesting thing with that 1-2 punch. And then how Yusuf always defensively rebounding, coming in with big plays. He's
Yep.
there, but do they need him offensively or not? We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, I'll never root against like you, Hosey, like myself in that. Like, I think we put a lot of emphasis on strategy, trying to poke holes, things like that. Ultimately, the talent and all that, luck, injuries,
Of course. Yeah.
matchups play a huge part. But as far as strategy, like I think Zakir's also been kind of lucky to have been groomed pretty well.
Yeah.
Both organized ball at school and then also like kind of just within the family and then BBA, right? He's had some good. He had Hosey last year,
Yeah. I
right? So
mean,
he's gotten to see a
I'm
lot.
sure that team was a lot of fun to be on.
I
Yeah.
mean, he gets to see how these guys think, what it takes. So I think he has a lot of wisdom, even though he just turned 18. Um, so it'll be fun to watch them grow. Cool. So let me see if there's anything else. Oh yes, I gotta now we gotta get nasty. All right. So who is the worst team in your opinion? This is a question I asked just because you know what? I'll tell you why I did it. It's not nice. I don't care if it's not nice. Last year, many teams ranked us dead last, and
Mhm.
I took that as fuel to the fuel for the fire, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and call them out. Kusei was one of them, and I put a chip on my shoulder against them. We didn't have the best season, but we beat them. And then Abbas, I think, was unanimously ranked the number one team. So I said to the team, I said, let's just set a precedent and beat them, right? The rest of the tournament we won't talk about, but at least it's like some kind of fuel. Forget the
Mhm.
results. So I want to give someone out there some fuel.
All right.
So in your mind, let's not call them the worst team. Which team do you think ranks number 14?
Scroll down for me. Let me see number
Sure.
14 too.
Let me zoom in again. So you got now I don't know if we talked about all these teams. So we got Abbas and Tuza.
Right. Right.
We've got Zakir and Ali. We've got Batan's Cali squad. And then the Canadians, Hamid and Husler, Fatakar brothers, and then we talked about the others.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah, I don't want to give fuel to the wrong people because I know those people are going to come back at me. But um, I think if I'm looking quick glance, um, I hate to do it because I'm a Cali guy, but that Cali team is probably I would put in that spot
Team 12?
only because well, I mean Burhan Shakir is there, so who I think is really good, who I didn't see there at the end. Um, and Hasnain Hashmi was incredible that championship year with Hosey and
Yeah,
Tusa. So
it was.
if I had to pick maybe there, it's just hard for me to go against like I don't know much of the Fatak's depth here, like beyond them two. So
That's a fair point.
maybe I would put them on there in terms of like I know they're gonna be incredible, but I just don't know the depth beyond them
Right.
well. So I mean, those are kind of the two that stick out when I look at it and say I just not sure. And then yeah,
So
Hasnain's team I think is the other one that popped out. Yeah, the Hamza Baruch, Taher Hasanali one. Um,
interesting. So going on the results, and then I'll give you my kind of
yeah.
input. Let me separate this out to a new window so that it doesn't share right quick. Okay. So Worst team, in my opinion of folks. A lot of the folks couldn't necessarily answer honestly because they didn't know so many players, and I think we
Right.
all fall in that boat, right? The unknowns are high, which makes this really interesting. But the number one answer was California.
Mm.
So Burhan, Ali Bora, bring it. Shut up the haters.
Oh, I know they're capable. Ali gets, that man is incredible too. To
Oh
be
yeah.
able just the energy, the fitness, like he can control a game. We played in a 3v3 Cali tournament earlier in the year. Ali was pretty dominant in that tournament.
Oh, Ali's amazing. The other one, which is surprising, which actually you did mention, was Dosaji's team.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, I don't know who's rebounding over these guys. Hasnan's a beast.
Yeah.
Karimi's a
Mustansir's a
beast.
beast. Yeah.
And then you got Taher Light, right? I don't know the other guys. So unless, oh, he got Hamza Bruges. So it's not like they completely lack
No,
offense.
yeah.
Hamza's going to have a green light to shoot, is what I guess. And then you're going to have a lot of cleanup down
Yeah.
there.
I don't know not much about, well, this Hasnain,
So Mustafa Musa boy is supposedly an offensive player. I think he was on our
okay.
project. But
Yeah, because
Hasnan,
I'm
I don't
wondering
think
who's handling the ball, like who's controlling the
it's
pace.
got to be Hamza, I
Yeah.
assume, right?
So
I
that's
don't
the
know these other
only
guys.
question I have
So
for this.
Hasnan, I had I played with him twice. Very quiet.
Hmm.
He was thinner at the time, but he had insane hops. So he on a depleted team because it was a year I lost Saber. And then I had him another year. I think he was like my big man with a boss and Roma, believe it
Hmm.
or not. He was actually just a stud on the boards, but he was
Okay.
like 16 and 17. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, he was critical, just like Hasnan was for Hosey's team. He
He
was the
okay. The
jacked,
name
quiet
looked
guy.
familiar. I thought that yeah. Okay, he was yeah.
So I
He's the
assume
one
he's
I
that
thought was
much
really
bigger
good.
and stronger 2, 3 years later now.
Yeah, because
So
he's
I
yeah
feel
he's
like down low, this team is solid.
yeah
But yeah, it'll be interesting.
yeah. This middle part, I just don't know if there's any like guards or ball handlers. Musa Boy, Imran Hussein, Adam Valiji. I just don't know who.
Yeah. So
So
they're picked
yeah
just out of the misfortune of knowing us. But I'm gonna give some shit to some friends of mine
yeah.
just to light some
Do it.
fire.
Do it.
Dada, who's getting a rebound on your team?
Good
All
point.
right. Once the stats come out, I'd love to see like the average height. Daruger skews it in their favor.
Hmm.
But man, outside of you, Adam, and you're a nice guy. Who's doing it? Number two, Daher, Sizzle, my brother, wishing him a speedy and 110% recovery. A lot is on him. I think it was a little unfair to put him
Yeah, after an injury. Yeah.
as a platinum player without knowing the details of his injury. Maybe they did. So I hope he comes back in good shape. So take this as fuel. I put you guys down.
Okay.
And I say this just to give you guys some shit. Adnan was my teammate last year, so I know he'll be unhappy with my statement. Um,
Yeah, I don't light a fire with those guys because I have flashbacks to that city versus city
they
game.
are undefeated when together, so it'll
Yeah,
be awesome to see them back on the court together.
for sure.
And also that was kind of like the top answer outside of Batan, Hassanan, and
Yeah, I
Dada,
could see that.
top
Yeah.
three. So that's the draft. That's the responses to today's survey that I threw out just to kind of give
But
the
like you
right.
said, hey, we do this every year. People speculate. Even if you don't say it out loud, you think who's the best worst. It rarely ever
It
plans out
rarely.
that way.
It's like we're as accurate as Charles Barkley. Like all our
Exactly.
hot takes are meaningless. Look,
Yeah,
every team is one rolled ankle away from success or failure.
there we
One
go.
matchup. I mean, we've had crazy stuff like you're playing a G League team one year, the next year you're playing the number 2 seed in the freaking first round. Like it's all over the place, and that's part of the fun, you know. I'm going to touch on that subject because I think I mentioned it before. Like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the committee did last year was like such a wild card thing, right? To have the number one team actually play the top the
Like the
bottom
eighth team.
BBA team, and then
Yeah,
like number nine played G League. So we were actually advantaged to be nine. We actually fell right at number nine.
right.
At the end of the day, number one and number two are in the finals, right? So, like, my opinion is if you want to be a champ, you got to be ready to beat everybody. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter who you play in the first round or not. Yes, you don't want to be in the losers bracket, but you've proved it doesn't matter. Um, so that's our second kind of time stab, right at about an hour.
yeah,
I want to touch, let's spend about 15 minutes
yeah,
on the fun stuff, diving down memory lane a little bit. So
yeah.
I'll stop my screen share. I know you have something you kind of put together just for
Yeah.
giggles. We hear it a lot. Some of us old heads. I'm sure the youngins talk about this in their own circles.
Yeah.
Top guard, top center, top team ever, top combinations. I think one thing the BBA has never done. Ideas been thrown around. I think it'd always be fun to do. Kind of a split concept of an all-star game or an
Hmm.
old versus young. We've gotten close to it with city versus city, right? But it's just interesting to see folks that are third options become first options and vice versa. I think that's really where boys become men and vice versa, right?
Sure.
And yeah, so share what you got and to put some perspective on like what got you into putting this together and just let's just shoot the shit.
Yeah. No, it's been something I've been thinking about a long time because, we've now played each other so many times. Me and Mustan have played each other. I played Abbas many times. Yusuf, I beat him in the finals twice. He finally beat me, right, 2 years ago. So, I was just saying, hey, why don't I put together this, just a way that we can look and see what our records are in BBA against each other.
Sure, I love that you started with this.
I got to start with this. Leave this on here. We're on the
Very,
we're on the conversation together. Just it felt like I was always doing well against your teams, but it's good to see the results.
yeah, I won't go into the asterisks. I'll give you the cake, right? I'll give you your flowers. I deep dived on some of this. It's not an absolute, but the trend is correct. You've had
Right. And I think part of it is just so I actually feel like that city versus city we played against each other. I learned a lot about how you play offense. And that helps me a lot. I mean, you can't stop you fully, but it helps me at least think of how to play you, right? Um, and so yeah, this is just a little thing I put together, just BBAs, the history of the BBAs. Any player who's played, you can look at the head-to-head matchup of anyone here. So like if we put Mustang together,
let's
a
put
little,
me and Hustler.
yeah, which by the way, I think that was the most games. Like y'all have played the
We
most
played
games
so
against each
damn much, and
other
I think I
in
had an
BB.
advantage on him till last year.
I was gonna say, what's your guess for the record?
I would have thought we were right at 500 all in all, but he might have an edge now.
You are no, wrong Josefa Hussein. Wrong
I
Jose.
was like, damn, I can't
Good
get more
one.
even than that.
He's two S's. You're 5-8.
So yeah, that's a crazy amount of games. So you got two
13
on me last year. So we
Yeah.
were at 5 and 6. Yeah, that last year hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That one hurt bad, and they
And
were
this
not
one here is
close.
just the point differential, just to show like the average over all the
Dude,
games.
so many of our games throughout 13 years, out of that, we probably faced off in 10 of them,
Mhm.
I would think at least, and sometimes twice. So many of the games came down to like the last shot.
The last shot, exactly.
So many of them. So that's a crazy, crazy close point differential, meaning like two possessions can change this record around, right?
Yeah. And
That's
I think the
amazing.
fun part, eventually the goal is like, let's get some stats in here and see too, like when you play Hustler, like how many points do you average? Is it
Yeah.
less than what you average normally? Right. It could
No,
be a good way
it's
to look at defensive matchups for captains in the future too. It's like, hey, I'm drafting this guy as a Zakir stopper, right? Like
exactly.
you need a Zakir stopper. Like, how has he
Of
done
course.
against this team? So,
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say whoever looks at this should at least get an idea on trends, right? Because there's so many variables to this stuff, but it's actually just some fun and interesting things to look
it's
at.
just fun too to rub it. And I know the guys on that,
Can you do me a favor? I'm gonna give some shit to someone just because I've gotten burnt twice.
let's
Pull
do
up
it.
Taher Hamid.
Hamid against who?
Me.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
He's gonna hate me for this.
There we go. 4-1.
I don't know when that one was. I can't remember it. Okay. I
There's some
feel like
dominant.
also
So crazy for me, which I didn't realize I was playing with this. So like against you, I've done well against three players. Josefa Raja, I'm like 1-6.
that's wild.
Who's like the only person, and then Mahir, I'm like 1-7. Those teams, the way that they play, and I'm thankful to have won a championship with Raja, right, on the team together. But yeah, that guy has my number. So it's interesting to see, right? There are guys that I play better against, and then guys that just have my number, right?
Let's see Qasim versus Yusuf.
Ooh, that's a great one. Although they play together a lot too, so
They got to the finals.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this populates what? City versus city and everything, or just
Oh,
BBA?
Qasim's 4-0 against Yusuf.
Wow. Yusuf, you should have been here for today's
I
episode.
know. This is only BBA, so no city versus city in this yet.
Damn.
Eventually we can add the other tournaments on the web. And since 2015, so since the website has
Sure,
been,
sure.
so
Wow, two-time
so
MVP
it
now
sounds
in
like
one.
Yusuf needs to be on Qasim's team, to
Ooh. On
uh,
this topic, like who's someone you've never gotten to play with and who you wish you got to play with?
oh, that's a good question. Um, I've never played with Tuza. I would love to play with Tuza.
Okay.
I feel like we have very similar basketball IQ, similar ways we could run a team and think
Yeah.
about that. I think that would be just the most fun team to be on.
City versus city in Austin was fun because we got like the Chicago flavor, we got the Houston flavor.
Yeah.
We had young. I think we were the most complete team of, I don't know, maybe
I mean, no
BBA
question.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah. No question.
It sucks that we couldn't pull through, but like I was just thinking about it and I was like, holy shit, like that was nuts. We had Taher Hasanali light.
Hmm.
He was hurt. Um,
But still hitting threes.
and then we had Zakir, who was close to his prime.
Hmm.
We had Tuza and Abbas. That was nuts. So the point of me saying that was like it was just interesting to see like the different styles. We all had different approaches to the game. So that was definitely fun. Um, I've never played with Hustler. I think we had one or two opportunities to do so.
Hmm.
It didn't materialize.
That would be interesting. I played with him once in a city versus city, but it was kind of like it was me, a boss, hustler,
Actually, that
Baiji.
might be the most complete team because I remember looking at that. I was like, there's no
But
way.
we had no chemistry on the court.
That's crazy,
We
right?
struggled because it was just like who's the alpha, who's getting the ball, who's running the offense. So it
Y'all
got
had
to show
Yusuf,
you.
you, Hustler down low, right?
Yeah. And Baiji on the bench at some time. So
And then who were the primary, I guess, scorers? It was a boss.
a boss, I don't remember who else was on that team. I'll have to look at it, but
I remember that. I
yeah.
remember thinking, holy crap, how'd they swing this? And then y'all got spanked a
And then
couple
we got
times.
spanked. Yeah.
The
So
Canadians, that was the
yeah,
year I
it's not
couldn't make
true.
it because
Yeah.
I was on the Canadian team. I
Yeah.
got COVID actually.
Yeah. You wouldn't end up playing,
That would
but
have been fun. Because I've always that was the other people the other guy I wanted to play with was Sizzle.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's-
Sizzle, I've also another one, Adnan. I would love to play with Yeezy.
oh, it's fun, man.
That'd be
Okay,
a
you
lot
just
of
got
fun.
such a motor.
Yeah, I'm
He's
jealous you
such
get
a
to play with
such
him
a
more.
good teammate. Um, awesome. Look, this was a lot of fun. I think, the thing about these podcasts is we have our perspectives,
Yeah.
right? We have our anecdotal evidence. We have our own little rivalries. We have our own little stories. I think the next phase of the podcast is going to be seeing some new perspectives.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say this is not an offense to me or you or any of the old heads, but the tide is obviously shifting if it's not already been shifted.
Mhm.
It's happened in the pro leagues. It's happening here, right? I mean, look at the hardware last year. Every single major one, I think, was a youngin or teenager, even
Mhm.
from Haryana, like my teammate to the two Raja studs, Zakir and Karimi. I think they swept like every accolade, right? And then at the end of the day, the championship went to Qasim and Adnan, like the rising.
Mhm.
They're probably like what the tenured, but not old heads. What are they called? Like the established stars.
Yeah, they're like
They're like in their prime,
in their prime. Yeah.
right? And then then they also had an X factor in Baby Kitab.
Mhm.
But again, they were deep all the way, right? That QV finally got his chip. I think Shubber was on the team. So they had all the right pieces, but the shift is obviously there. The fact that it's like teenagers is just scary in a good way.
I mean, like you said, Hamza is the age of BBA, right? So,
Yeah, man, I'm excited for that chapter. So I hope the people watching have enjoyed, thus far our perspectives on being BBA ready, how we study information from the past, how we cemented some of these memories. Like you still have your hardware there, I have my hardware. Um, but I'm ready for, I think, some new stories.
yeah, for sure. I think it'll be good to hear their perspective, their takes, and for anyone who wants some ammo and fuel to trash talk, let me know. I can look up your head-to-head record against someone. So
Exactly. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. This has been fun walking down memory lane. I had a lot of fun playing with the team in 2021. It was also gold, but
mhm.
aside from the fact that we won it all, it was just such a sweet year,
Mhm.
Like I looked at some of the stats and Aamir put up some insane numbers,
Crazy year.
right?
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't get drafted is like tragic.
Well, I was
Um,
actually looking at his like his teams historically going through this exercise and looking at it. I mean, he's always, even as a captain beyond that, his teams are always the most competitive, like very small margins of victory and loss, always in the quarters, always in like making it deep runs. So like, yeah, it's crazy, right?
and Amir never did it through flash, right? It wasn't like a blow by. It was just like there's this demeanor. I think
Yeah,
that's like his number one thing. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Um, he's patient, right? But like also like the strategy, like this is like this some core winning tenets, right? It's not always the loudest guy in the room
yeah,
that wins, right? So I think I hope there's a way the committee can figure out how to get some of these guys in. I like the idea of the draft and the parity, but ultimately we need to have the best possible product out there, right?
for sure. And I think
So
that's going to be the big thing to come out of this draft is understanding it's not just about like parity for parity's sake. It's also about the best quality in teams that are there, right? So
and on and even taking at a tangent of this whole tide is shifting stuff. Okay, fine. You know what? He's
yeah,
not a diamond or a platinum today, right? Um, but the wisdom that he can bestow upon these next gen of captains,
yeah.
right? Just watch how he handles the huddle or put the ball in his hands in the last for the last
Mhm.
shot. Like he's probably still one of the best shooters in the BBA.
Yeah, I mean,
So
ask anyone who's played with him, and he controls the game at the end in terms of tempo, how he's talking to the players, his teammates, strategy. All of that is unparalleled probably in BBA. So
yeah, so I'll conclude with that little bit of a tribute to Aamir. I mean, we've become great friends. It started with a little unknown. We were team rehab. I don't know if you remember that. He was
yeah,
rehabbing me. I was having an injury. Hassan had a shoulder, and we pulled together. And it was just great time. So Amir, we're gonna miss you this year. I hope the committee can figure this out. No knock on the committee. I know this is not their fault per se, but let's just see if we can learn from this, right? And with that, any last words, Tahir? Because good night from me.
last words. I mean, be ready. I'm coming for number 4. So
I love that you gave me this head-to-head data because I got some fuel, right? Like
there we
we
go.
may not be the last ranked team. I'm very happy with our squad, but fuel is good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll keep pouring some fuel on the fire and get some people pumped up. So
Love it. All right, man. Good night.
all right, good night.